So the question is, can you explain about Azure VMSize? As you may know, Azure data centers contain large numbers of racks filled with physical servers, storage systems, and networking equipment for you to create new Azure virtual machines. However, when creating a new Azure VM, you cannot directly choose the exact amount of physical CPU cores or memory. Instead, you must select a VM size which defines how many virtual CPU cores, how much RAM, the number of data disks, and network core bandwidth the VM have. Based on the VM size you choose, Azure provisions your VM on physical hosts that support the hardware configuration required for that VM size. For example, when you select the VM size standard D2SV3, Azure will provision a VM with two virtual CPU core, 8 GB of virtual memory, and you can set the OS disk size up to 1 TB, and it comes with a temp disk of 16 GB, and you can attach up to 4 data disks. And this VM size is equipped with 3.5 gigabit per second network cord, and you can attach up to 2 network cores. Based on this VM configuration, Azure may provision your VM in this physical system. What happens if you want to change Azure VM size? The good news is Azure allows you to upgrade or downgrade the VM size when the existing size no longer meets your needs. However, you must make sure the OS running on the VM supports the new size. If you change the VM size while the VM is running, then you can only change to the size that is available in the current hardware cluster the VM is running on. For example, this VM is currently running on this cluster, and this cluster only supports two sizes. The first one is standard D2SV3, and the second one is standard D4SV3. And the current VM size is standard D2SV3. Now you want to change the VM size, then you can only change to the size standard D4SV3 because it is the only other size this cluster supports. After you submit the request to change the VM size from standard D2SV3 to standard D4SV3, Azure automatically reboots the machine to complete the request. If you stop and deallocate the VM, then the VM is removed from the cluster it was running on, which allows you to select any size available in your Azure region. For example, you can change it to the new size standard F4SV3 because this size is available in your Azure region, and the VM size changed from 2 CPU to 4 CPU to reflect the new size standard F4SV3. Now, when you power on the VM, then the VM is provisioned on this cluster because this cluster supports the size standard F4SV3.